Hey everyone, Chris here, and I want to first thank you for taking the time to join us on a Tuesday night and watching this special presentation. Tonight's seminar, who some have a genuine concern about, is: does aluminum wire endanger your family along with jeopardize your insurance? Now, I think what's happened is that in our quest to solve the issue of aluminum wiring, we realize there are many contributing factors, and hopefully some of the examples you will see here today, you will find that they are very typical, and it's almost weird how poorly they are addressed. The first and most important factor you ought to be aware of is the lack of understanding. When your home was built, chances are a guy like this showed up, fully qualified, and probably came with lots of electrical experience, certified as an electrical journeyman. Now, installations were simple, routine, and inspections passed just the same way as it happens today. That all changed, of course, when aluminum hit the market. A particular type of manufactured wire, referenced as AA1350 or EC grade aluminum, designed only for utility stations and commercial buildings, made its way into the homes of millions of people. Research showed that when aluminum wire started to replace copper back in the late 60s and early 70s, the journeyman electricians at that time were not aware of how the AA1305 aluminum wire would react over time when being connected to electrical devices. So over time, this aluminum has produced some really ugly results and is a danger, causing fire and electrocution. We know firsthand that over 4.4 million homes are affected by this aluminum wire, and according to the Consumer Product Safety Commission, homes wired with aluminum are 55 times more likely to have one or more connections reaching fire hazard conditions in the home than copper wire. What's worse is that our friends over at the insurance companies realize this and are taking action by stopping coverage. So we're here out in the communities sharing this information and safety concerns. There are many more concerns other than the ones mentioned, and this is of course why we're here today. Now, the first question that always gets asked is, why should I listen to you? There's a very special guy who's been approached by many homeowners over the years, who's now created an entire association to address this critical need. That guy, of course, is Arthur Vince, who is somewhat bit of a legend in the communities and amongst electricians. Arthur has been involved with over 10,000 commercial and residential projects over the past 42 years as a master electrician. His success back in the 80s led him to a multi-million-dollar manufacturing company constructing electrical boxes, electrical switch plates, and plug outlets. He was also the first and only to develop the world's #1 utility box with a voltage divider. We will talk a lot today about voltage separation and arcing with electrical devices. Since being in the trenches after so many years as a master in his field, Arthur discovered a new approach and a method which has guaranteed the proper restoration of aluminum connections, both with electrical panels and devices. He then went on to nurture this association that is founded on the standards and practices that are carefully maintained by electricians to perform audits. This certified inspection is to ensure electrical safety in the homes of people with aluminum wire. Now, depending on which community you are in, Arthur should be in attendance today. If for whatever reason he isn't, definitely one of his certified company will be. We will be doing some Q&A, question and answer, for those of you who have any, so please feel free to write them down. Our intent as part of the aluminum wire and restoration community is to give out as much valuable information as possible and have you walk away saying, you know, that was pretty good. I enjoyed that and I definitely learned some stuff. So that's our goal, and maybe at the end of this presentation you can tell me if I did okay delivering that to you. At the end of this event, every person here today will receive a special gift from Arthur. It's worth several $100s and comes to you completely free, so you'll definitely want to stay for that. In the event you do take him up on his free offer, you've got to know that he only takes on an average of 10 clients each month, so if you want to work together with him, time is of the essence. Okay, so this is who this seminar is for. Once again, I'm presenting it in this way, both in slides and on a short 30-minute video, with nothing but respect for your time. It's already a long day after all, right? So this is specifically for people who own homes constructed in the late 60s and early 70s, and ultimately looking for an end result of correcting their aluminum wiring and to facilitate that change, okay? So this is who that's for. This is also for people who realize that there's really no such thing as a quick fix to aluminum wiring. Okay, so what we've discovered is a lot of today's electrical contractors began using makeshift solutions using a combination of tape or gel and sealant with improper twists on connections and or crimp style connections. These improper torques and twists using these connections can actually lead to an even worse situation than before. Many of the illustrations we will provide here will give proof to that very notion that electrical contractors today have really no idea how to treat the aluminum wire properly. It's not an exaggeration. Almost every home we've discovered that had work done by an electrician had to be retrofitted due to the poor workmanship. This is also for people who understand that when it comes to aluminum wiring, the electrical panel is using a 40-year-old technology, including breakers, breaker panels, sub-panels, and proper grounding. We will talk a lot today about why this is a major hazard if not addressed according to the Canadian Electrical Code and why you should take all efforts to try and replace it. We also understand this is not only for the maximum safety of your home, but also that insurance realizes that this is family history we're dealing with. Okay, you have children, important belongings. All of this is, of course, near and dear to your heart. Our wonderful friends governing these policies are flagging homeowners with older homes containing aluminum, so it's our job to stop that, period. Part of the reason we are so excited about sharing this type of information is because this model has helped more homeowners than any other method we've ever done, including avoiding tearing down walls and installing new wire. So we're really excited and happy to walk you through this today. I want you to also understand that it's not your fault that she might be sick. Okay, so you might be asking, how did this wire end up in my home and why haven't I heard of aluminum wiring before? Aluminum is known as a bit of a superconductor because it only takes about half the current capacity as copper, which is the typical metal used today. In 1965, copper shortages and high prices made the installation of aluminum wiring a very attractive alternative, making it the ideal choice for transmitting power. All of this optimism came with an unfortunate oversight. As aluminum was being fabricated in the homes, the industry discovered changes needed to be improved when installing and terminating the smaller wire. Little did the electricians realize that aluminum required a specific termination, including the electrical panel, in order for it to be effective. When the electricity passes through the wire, it heats up and expands the aluminum. When the power is off, the wire cools down and contracts. This unfortunately causes the wires to eventually create gaps between the termination of the brass or nickel screws on the electrical device, causing arcing and heating, which can eventually lead to terrible things like fires and in some cases electrocution or even death. I would like to preface that there have been many reported incidents, even clients we've personally serviced. Okay, privy to the first is the number one question. Nothing's gone wrong in my home in 30 plus years. What's the big hurry? That's what we get a lot of, right? What's the pressure? Why the sudden panic? Well, like anything, if it has been left alone for a long period of time, naturally the manufactured components will eventually wear down. This occurs, with your vehicle when you're giving it oil, upgrading your roof because of rain or hail damage, and even more specifically, electrical devices, right? Including laptops, radios, TVs, anything that is carrying an electrical current will eventually fail. It's kind of misleading, right? Nothing moves. Maybe the electrical switch, right? You plug in once in a while. Well, indeed, there is massive movement happening within your electrical system. There are electrons flowing through, and you will learn today even just a small bend in the electrical wire, if there is a kink in the cable, can actually force the electrons to stop at that kink and build up heat. No joke, it's the Canadian Electrical Code to have certain bend radius on all wire, and we will show that in a demonstration today. The truth is, families are calling on experts to examine burns, plastic smells, and warm electrical outlets, and in some cases, fire. Just because you've never had problems like this doesn't mean one isn't lurking behind your walls, and in many cases, the aluminum wire fails over a long period of time. Lack of reported danger by families either unaware or worse, ignoring the facts regarding aluminum pay the ultimate price. Okay, so now the question is, do you have it? And how do you identify it and the problems? Well, first off, you can tell just by looking at what we call the jacket of the wire. This is the insulation, usually white in color. And if you go to the basement of your home, you will typically see all of the wires sticking out beside the electrical panel. Take a quick peek at the white jacket insulation, and what you'll find is writing, usually in blue, that says aluminum right on it. Pretty easy, right? Or AL in abbreviation. You should know that in some cases the wire comes in colors like black or green, but it's very rare. Really easy to tell once you look at the actual wire underneath the jacket. Here you can see both copper being a bronze color and of course aluminum being silver in color. Arthur will tell you that in rare cases you will find actual copper that has been nickel plated, which is a bit deceiving, but it looks like aluminum, and again that is very rare, but that's how you identify it. Okay, so here's what starts to happen with the aluminum wiring. You can see here that it's burnt, right? And all the rest of the pictures and examples you will see here are actual clients in other communities in Calgary. A scary figure, and I'm sure Arthur can attest to this, is that over 90% of the homes we visited occupy a fire hazard condition. That statistic is almost obnoxious, right? Seriously, every home. Here's a client that called us out here in Calgary, out in the Pembroke Meadows area. What you're looking at is the stove outlet that had aluminum wire. Believe it or not, as the wall caught fire, the owner tried to rectify the problem by running to the electrical panel and swiping the 15 amp breaker, only to find out that it wouldn't move and that sucker had seized. Yes, older breakers will seize and fail under undue stress or certain conditions. This particular client thankfully had the wherewithal to shut off the main breaker to the home before pouring a bucket of water to douse it out. Here's another gal who lives in Marlborough who called us up and said, "You know, I smell something funny and something bad in my house, and I know I have aluminum wiring. Can you come out and take a look at what might be happening?" She found this outlet, and now she didn't take it out of the wall. All she noticed was the burn on the outside of the surface of the cover plate. So as we performed the inspection, Arthur took this outlet from the wall, and this was the result of what was going on behind that burnt cover plate. Again, improper connections, and it just so happened that we were close to the fire hall, so we paid a visit to the chief fire inspector to have him, give us some insight to whether or not they get regular calls for incidents like hers. And sure enough, he replied with, "Yeah, we're sorry to know that we will have to be dealing with this." Okay, so here's an interesting case. Can anybody tell me what's happening with this particular outlet? Now you'll notice that even, like mentioned before, that even kinking the wire will cause, at that kink point, some heat buildup. And this is totally what you want to avoid, especially when dealing with aluminum. Here's another way that aluminum rears its ugly head, in that it doesn't necessarily have to be connected to the outlet, but just being connected to itself. These are travel wires that continue on to the next set of outlets, and even if one device is plugged into, a part of the home, it will affect all the other 12 outlets on the circuit, even causing those burns that we'll be showing you here today. As you can see, just by being under the wrong moret, you can see the signs of burning, eventually leading to something much worse. A lot of do-it-yourselfers will make this common mistake, where the aluminum is being treated as Mickey Mouse and end up with goofy results. Okay, so the aluminum connections solution. How do we get rid of these hazards once and for all? Now, upon our investigations, there appears to be a considerable amount of confusion about how to best correct this problem. We're going to clear this up right here, right now. There are several right and wrong solutions offered by both electricians and governments alike for the permanent repair of aluminum connections. I'm going to cover the right way shortly, but here are the wrong ways first. One of them is this so-called aluminum-friendly wall outlets and light switches. You may have heard of them before. They will indicate aluminum, or they are aluminum-friendly or aluminum-rated, commonly referred as Kohler devices. However, according to extensive lab testing reviewed by the Consumer Product Safety Commission, they found out that it is determined that these devices fail on a regular basis even under normal stress. Here is a picture of one. As you can clearly see marked at the top, Kolar, burnt. Badly, right? We find these devices all the time. They perform better but still do not meet the requirements or eliminate any of the risk. They also do not remedy any of the typical connections in the home like appliances or light fixtures. So plain and simple, don't use them. Another method is to crimp the aluminum copper together with regular crimpers and connectors. These tools are readily available at big box stores and are to be avoided as a permanent solution. The diameter of these morettes are usually different, and almost all the time these kits do not have aluminum rated morettes. You have to be very particular when it comes to aluminum. Another method promoted by electricians is to twist the wires together with a regular twist connector and use antioxidant cream. Now, we've seen these in some of the audits we've done in homes, and what happens with this method is that the cream, which should act like a barrier for oxidation from the wires being twisted together, actually acts like a conductor and moves the electrical current through the connector. The end result for all these connections we see are, the melting of this moret. Bad news. Don't ever let an electrician tell you this is a solution, because it definitely isn't. Okay, so now the right ways. Independent tests accepted by the Consumer Product Safety Commission reported there are only 2 accepted methods to keep the home safe. The first is to outright replace the aluminum wire with the copper wire. Now, yes, you can do that, but if one of our certified auditors would come in and evaluate the place, you would find the bill would be a bit overwhelming. It is prohibitively expensive, and you would render yourself thousands, if not tens of thousands, to complete this type of work. You will see later that it's unnecessary and would take weeks to implement. Although this method appears to be the safest solution, the remaining solution is just as safe, effective, long-lasting, and is far more economical. This other method is to connect the aluminum wire with a short piece of copper wire, which then connects to the existing or new devices. Okay, so you'll see here that this connects to your switches, your lights, your electrical plugs, where the aluminum, when done properly, creates a new bond, forcing it to act properly when fastened to the new device. After that, there are no problems or hazards to worry about, especially aluminum-rated devices or any other tactics that electricians promote as safe when they are clearly not. This method is commonly known as pigtailing and is very safe when using the proper connectors. Warning: do not attempt to try these repairs yourself or your buddies, even if they are a mechanical engineer, an electrical engineer, electricians of any description. Now, I know that sounds ridiculous, right? Where you need an electrician to come in and perform the work, right? I've got to tell you, folks, believe me when I say not doing this correctly can lead to an even worse condition for the home. There seems to be a huge disconnect and knowledge differential, especially when it came up to aluminum wire, which is why it was totally abolished in the late 70s. If a time gap prevailed where the techniques and finesse of handling these connections were passed on to the next generation of electricians, these hazards would probably not exist. All of those electricians that were installing this wire are simply not around anymore. When Arthur founded the Aluminum Wire Restoration Association, the very principle of auditing these conditions and the connections literally forced the electricians who are certified to perform this work to do it properly, which is then guaranteed for life. Now, as a caveat, or whatever reason you decide to take this work upon yourself, we are just relieving ourselves of any of that responsibility. Arthur suggests that only an experienced and certified electrician should be anywhere near this type of work. The interesting thing is that there are electricians who want to perform this work but handle it with poor workmanship, and it actually takes very little to show them how to do it correctly. They must and should offer you a 100% guarantee on their work. Now, to this day, we don't know of any companies that do. Even though you can read about it in the code book, nowhere does it state in the Canadian Electrical Code how to do the twist connections properly, how much torque to use, how to twist 3 wires, 4 wires, 5 wires, all in the combination of circuit loads, including junctions between the top and bottom floor. It simply doesn't exist. This information only comes from experience and being in the trenches relating to 40-year-old technology. There are only 3 acceptable connectors on the market to join the copper and aluminum wire together. The trademark names of these connectors are Copalum, Alumacom, and Moret. The first one is Copalum. It's a different type of unit. An electrician has to be qualified by the manufacturer to use this special type of tool, which costs about $800 a month, and then you have to buy each connector, which is expensive, and although it works, it's not the first choice as a solution. The next one is Alumacom. These little puppies are about $3 a pop. Again, you have to have a special touch to get the screws right and to torque them properly. They usually cause problems because they are bigger, and with the space needed inside the electrical box, we just avoid these connectors. It's a particular product that has been out in the market for about a couple years. They are not as reliable as the third option, which is by far the most preferred, manufactured by Moret. Specifically Moret 63 and 65, which are rated for aluminum to copper. This special design requires a physical skill and guide to ensure the proper connection. Once installed, this connection is just as safe and enduring as completely replacing the aluminum circuits in your home with copper. Now, most people at this point say, "Awesome, Chris. Thank you for sharing these insights, but will these methods also work for my electrical panel?" As you can imagine, the connections in your panel are just as important. If you take every requirement stated by the Canadian Electrical Code that have changed since your panel was installed 30 to 40 years ago, it would be a bit overwhelming. However, it is just as important and crucial for your safety. Here you can see a panel with breakers that are corroding at the screw terminals, which severely compromise the trip sensing. We will also find many homes with two wires connected to the same circuit, which overload the capacity in order for the breaker to function properly. To help answer more of these questions regarding the electrical panel, I would like to introduce to you some whom call the doctor of treating electrical equipment, Mr. Arthur Vince. Before I bring him up here, I would like to quote a line from some really smart people just like him, and it goes like this: "Prognosis without diagnosis equals malpractice." Every single home has different challenges when it comes to aluminum, and he's prescribed thousands of solutions and is a real master at helping people out with this problem. So please welcome Arthur. Master at helping people out with this problem. So please welcome Arthur.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so happy you're all here. You're all interested in aluminum wiring and the danger that it can cause in your house. Anyway, so electrical panels. Now the electrical panels that are in the communities. When we started this outreach to communities to actually inform them about the aluminum wiring and the status of the aluminum wiring after 40 years, it happened in Silver Springs, and then we went to Dalhousie, and now we're here in Varsity, and we're going to move south as we go. I'm gonna go to all the communities and see what the state of the wiring is, and the panels and the breakers, and we're going to then take all our knowledge. I'm gonna actually certify electricians and train them to do this, to do these connections properly.
And circuits, what do you?
We actually give you a letter, okay, through your insurance company. It's going to be, of course, it's going to have a seal of approval from City of Calgary Inspection Department, number one, and then going to have also a letter that will describe the fact that we now repaired your aluminum wiring. We also replaced the panel. When we apply for the permit, all the work description goes into the permit application also, and so that satisfies all the assurance needs to see. Okay, sir.
I can see the need for updating the current code as far as breakers and that is concerned, but when the aluminum wiring really got controversial, I thought was when it was being used in Ontario and Quebec for electrical baseboard heating, where you had cyclical loads and a more humid climate. I didn't think that the actual circuits here in this drier climate were creating that much problem with aluminum.
That corrosion actually happens between the two metals.
Yeah.
It's not a condensation that's happening on that wire.
Well, but I mean, I thought the humid climate made it
It makes it
Cyclical
worse.
load
It makes it
work.
worse, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, it makes it worse.
Yeah, well, it doesn't matter what climate it is, it's how the insurance companies will look at it, because they're now starting to do the payouts that they don't wanna do.
Right.
Okay, it's that simple. Okay, sir?
So you need a permit from the city to begin changing an electrical box?
We take out the permit,
You take out the permit from the city?
yeah,
So the city issues you a permit to have work on this house down there, is that
of course,
correct?
yeah, every job, if we end up doing the job, we take out a permit, that's the first thing we do.
Can you do part copper and then part,
Well, you don't wanna put the aluminum in there anymore.
No,
You-
but I
You can't
mean,
even get it.
no, yeah, right. But, you can still have half the house aluminum and half copper?
If
Of
your
course you can.
basement
Oh,
isn't,
yeah.
if your basement isn't boarded, then in some cases it's better to run the new wire, for sure. But, I mean, the pigtailing, of course, of that method is curing, you know, tons of headache that normally just doesn't exist.
Sir?
We had a few outlets changed and pigtailed, and the electrician used antioxidant
Yeah.
paste.
Yeah.
In other words, he took the 2 wires and
Yeah,
stuck
yeah.
a tube on it, and then he
Yeah.
spun barrettes.
We do a lot of looking into what researches are being done on these aluminum connections, and like was mentioned already, that the actual antioxidant, if there's a if the connection isn't done right between aluminum and copper, it's taking up the conductivity of that current, and it's burning up the barrettes. So it's not even a code anymore. The only time you need to use what this code is still calling for is if it's a stranded wire going to a solid, then they still want they want to
If you
use that
decide to
thing.
do the audit, you know, take a look at that specific outlet that you're talking about, we can examine it. We've taken out tons of outlets where the electrician installed it a year ago, brand new Decora, right out of the Home Depot, fried, completely fried.
The electricians that are handling the aluminum connections today are absolutely not experienced in aluminum handling, because they haven't been around when the aluminum was being installed.
This particular fellow was a little bit older.
Yeah,
Not-
okay.
Not as good looking as you.
Well, thank you.
I got high hopes
Okay.
now that you said that.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Oscar.
And I'm Priya.
Hi, we're the Wilsons in Silver Springs. I'm Dick and this is Nancy.
Hello, my name is Aziz Valiani.
I'm Vernon McKegg. I live on Dalham Crescent in Dalhousie.
Hi, my name is Marlene.
We are Anil and Deepa Sisodia.
Hi, my name's Debbie.
I'm Dennis.
This is Sadie.
Hi, this is Chris and Courtney. We live in Silver Springs.
Hi, I'm Joanne Currar. This is my husband Ray.
I'm Nikki Wilson, and I live in Marlborough in Calgary, Alberta. And recently I had an electrical issue where I had an outlet that was really smoking. Well, smelling, and this smell continued for quite some time, and then we finally figured out what it was, and it was a burnt out outlet. Kind of scary, thinking my house is going to burn down.
And Arthur come and check out our home and inspect the aluminum wiring.
And we've just had an inspection done of our house with regard to aluminum wiring.
The electric dude company were here and checked the whole house because I have the aluminum wiring.
Come out and just check and let us know that we had the proper wiring, that we had panel up to code, plugins up to code.
Our house is built in 1970s, so it had aluminum wiring.
And for aluminum wiring. And our home has aluminum wiring and we just want to protect our family.
We just had Arthur in to do a check of our aluminum wiring that's in our house.
I've been worried for years about aluminum wiring because several years ago an organization I belong to, either the Canadian Association of Retired Persons or Federal Superannuates organization, recommended an insurance company that they recommend to all their members to possibly give me cheaper insurance for the house and cars. So I contacted them and they sent me a form to fill out, and I filled out. One of the questions was, do you have copper or aluminum wiring? And I filled out aluminum wiring, and they wrote back to me and said, we will not insure a house with aluminum wiring.
And went did a full electrical audit of my entire house, including my box.
So I decided to get the free audit done by Arthur.
I heard about this free audit.
Arthur and Scott have just been in my house at the free audit, and then we were sent an audit of the rest of the house.
Came in to do an audit. They did the audit efficiently, expertly.
Finding out that your house isn't grounded and things aren't connected properly, and it's very stressful. And when you have somebody who comes into your home who actually treats you with kindness, it just makes the world a better place, and it makes you feel a whole lot safer. So I am definitely extremely grateful to have Arthur.
And we decided after that we would have all the electrical connections checked in our home. The electric dudes did it, and they did a wonderful job. They were very efficient and cleaned up after they left, and we're very happy with the work that they've done. So I'd recommend them if you have any questions about any problems with aluminum wiring in your home.
The crew that Arthur had was very efficient and accommodating, and everything was done to my satisfaction.
And our job was done very well, and we are happy with their work, and we highly recommend Arthur, the electric dude, for this sort of work.
In fact, the people in our community around us are safe through these preventive actions because we certainly don't want a fire in our own home, never mind affecting others in the community as well. Aluminum wiring has always been something that gave me some, I guess you'd call it hidden grief, in that there were all sorts of stories, and this crew came in and set the matter straight and certainly put my mind at ease.
And they came right out actually within a couple days, which was really awesome because I know how busy electrical people can be. They came out, they changed it all out for free, and it was totally awesome, and I learned a lot and realized how crazy my house is. But they did it all for free, and definitely are going to do up a whole write-up so we know exactly what we can do to make our house a lot safer for us and our dogs, which was really scary that our house could have burnt down with them in it. But yeah, it was really awesome that they came out really short notice and did all this stuff for free, and it made us feel a lot better.
And yeah, we're very happy they came and helped us out.
Yes, and I'd like to add that they were polite because they got delayed at a couple of houses before us, and they had the courtesy to call us and let us know that they were going to be delayed and by how long, so we really appreciate it. They were very clean in the house, changed into shoes, took care of our carpets and stuff, so it's much appreciated as a homeowner.
Of what we could be having a fire or some other kind of thing that would scare us, and he came in and did a super bang-up job, and I would recommend him to anybody.
Fantastic. Leo, and you live where?
116 Silver Springs Drive, Northwest.
Fantastic. Leo, we're going to send you the whole recommendation list. You're going to get that in email, and then you can make a decision of what you want to do with your wiring, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, he's shaking the hand of Arthur, the electric dude, of course.